better looking than maybe the guy she's dating, she's like, well, that must mean that I'm, you know, settling for my boyfriend. He's not good enough. Yeah, he's really nice and he likes me and he's pretty good looking, but this guy over here is really good looking and he's talking to me. Well, of course he will, because he can do pretty much nothing and sleep with you. Whereas the other guy has to go through a hell of a lot, and then you're going to end up leaving him. So it's not a very good situation. Now, if you're a really good looking guy, yeah, you have a lot of choices, but think about being a really good looking female. There's a really small amount of guys out there who are even gonna meet your standards, right? And well, I guess what I should say is think about being an average looking female. Now all of a sudden there's a, you know, there should be a big amount of guys that you would be open to at least dating, or you know, that sort of thing. Now you've closed yourself off. You're saying, I'm a 5, but I'm only going to talk to 8s, 9s, and 10s, right? I'm not even going to associate with guys that are 5s, 6s, and 7s, right? And so it's just kind of it's kind of like hypocrisy, right? It's like guys that are 9s and 10s are willing to basically do, I mean, they'll sleep with women that are 5s, and even less sometimes, right? Women, I don't think, will ever do that. Like, they'll never even, they think a guy approaching them that's not, you know, extremely good looking, they won't even consider it. They might be flattered by a guy who's average looking that comes up and says something to them, but it's going to be very rare that you're going to have a chance to even sleep with a woman who's way better looking than you. Whereas men, it happens all the time. I mean, they'll sleep with a whole spectrum of women, and, you know, sometimes they'll even get into a relationship, but it's very difficult for guys because women just have such high standards where, again, he was showing profiles on there where literally, I mean, people will say, like, I'm looking for a sugar daddy, I'm looking for, you know, if you're under 5'10" or under 6 feet, most of the time it's 6 feet. If you're under 6 feet, don't even swipe on me, right? So they're eliminating like 80% of people or 70% of people, of men, because most men are not 6 feet tall. And now you're looking for a 6 foot tall guy who also makes good money because you want him to support you and your kid. And you yourself are not, you're not an 8 or a 9 or a 10. If you were like a really good looking woman, maybe you would get a man to do that for you, right? Because let's face it, they might do that. But, you know, you're a 5 or a 6, you slept around with a couple 8s and 9s guys, and now all of a sudden the only guys that you're willing to talk to are guys that physically look like an 8, 9, or 10. And then what percentage of those guys are actually going to be interested in you? Because you're not an 8 or a 9 or a 10, you're a 5 or a 6, and you have all this baggage of maybe having kids or being emotionally unstable, and they're only going to talk to you to basically hit it and quit it, is what he says all the time. So I find it really interesting because I think it's true. I think that's the way women think, and I think it's pretty rare to find a woman that and you can just tell that it's true by looking at just the divorce rate. I mean, I think it happens for men also. I mean, men probably get bored, and, you know, maybe they get looks from a different woman and are fooling around, but in large part, I think men are a little easier to please, and you know, they're not looking for all these things that women are. Like, you don't have to be a certain height, you don't have to be a certain weight. You know, your looks are important, I guess, but I think a lot of it is like personality and that sort of thing. Whereas women they won't even consider you no matter what unless you look a certain way just right off the bat. And I know, again, I know that's true on both sides, but you know, it's if you're a guy that's just average looking, you're very rarely gonna get any interest from a female who's 2 or 3 numbers higher than you, right? It just won't happen. You won't be taken seriously. You won't get a response. You probably won't even match with someone, right? Because it's all about these he talks a lot about these dating apps, and so it's just too much work for people, right? They go on there, they basically don't match with anyone. The people that they do match with are you know, they're the people that have already had their fun and are looking for someone to support them, basically. Or they're, you know, again, girls that are the equal to the guy are no longer interested in that. They're interested in guys that are way better than them, you know, on a physical attractiveness scale, because the guys at the top have told them that, even though it's not true, because they don't want anything to do with them long term. They just want to sleep with them. But now, again, that's what I said earlier. The girl all of a sudden thinks, you know, I really am this guy that was incredibly great and good looking slept with me. That means that I'm a lot better than what I thought I was, and now I'm only gonna give the light of day to guys that are incredibly good looking, and I'm gonna ignore everyone else because I don't want to settle. A little bit of a hard pull there. That was fun. I haven't ridden this bike in probably 2 weeks or so, maybe a little bit less, but I didn't even think about riding today, but it wasn't raining, and so as you can see, the roads are a little bit wet, but it's December 20th, so it's pretty close. I think it's the darkest day of the year, today or tomorrow, and it's dark. I mean, it gets dark at about 4:15, and the sun comes up at about 7:45, so it's like 8.5 hours of sunlight, I want to say. Not very good, but it's not too cold. It's probably like 50 degrees right now. So yeah, that guy's videos are, I'm happy YouTube suggested those to me, because I've felt that way a long time about dating. Because I don't know, I feel like it's hard to please anyone, whether you're in a relationship, you know, whether you're a man or a woman. But when a woman has so many more options than a guy, because the guys at the top will sleep around with basically anyone, and you know, there's very slim pickings for guys that aren't incredibly good looking. And that's what he says. That's why he's you know, he's like, so many more guys are, you know, not to mention the bad divorce laws and everything. You know, you can lose your house, you can lose your assets, you can lose half of your net worth, you can lose custody of your kids, you can be paying child support. It's just a bunch of negatives, right? But I'm not even talking about marriage. I'm just talking about dating, right? Women have such high, unrealistic expectations of the way you should look and versus the way they look. I'm not saying a good woman can't date a good looking guy, but if I'm an average looking guy, I don't think that I can date people, you know. If I said to myself, you know, because I think I'm an average I'm an average looking guy. Like I'm 5'10", I think. I'm 160 pounds, so I'm not fat. I'm pretty athletic. I'm not overly tall, but I'm not short. But you know, if I thought that I could date like a supermodel or someone that was very close to a supermodel, I think that would be a stretch, right? I think it'd have to be like me getting pretty lucky to have a chance with that. Because let's face it, I could have a really good personality, but if she's not attracted to me physically, she's not really gonna, you know, it's just not gonna work. But women that maybe are pretty good looking, that I normally would think, well, I think this woman would maybe at least talk to me. Like, maybe she doesn't like the way I look, but I don't know that right off the bat because she's not, you know, like a supermodel herself. So I maybe feel like I can at least go up and talk to her. And they won't even give you the light of day, right? Because they think like, wow, what makes you think you can talk to me? You're not that good looking, and you think you can just come up and talk to me? You think I'm your equal? That's the vibe that I get from women, and those aren't fun interactions whatsoever, right? When they give you just kind of a standoffish look and they don't really want to open up to you at all, it's like, okay, I get it. Like, maybe you just don't like the way I look, which is fine. But when that happens with women who are clearly not, I mean, they're clearly not like incredibly looking. Like, they're maybe cute, maybe to some people, and they're still acting like that to men who are their equal, or maybe even a little bit better looking than they are. And so men are getting a bad name, but it's really not men. It's the top 10% or 20% of men who are the bad boys, right? And he uses that phrase a lot, that they're sleeping around with pretty much everyone, from women that are 4 and 5 all the way up to 9s and 10s. And so guys that are just average looking, or maybe even better than average looking, have no shot, because again, it's not a winning situation. Even if you're a guy that's an 8 and